there we go. There's the two cheetah. Amazing. So both of them are here by the looks of it, or just one that I can see. I would imagine the other one will be here. But let's have a look. I did see some vultures when we drove in, so I wonder if they potentially didn't kill something. Alright, so it's actually just the one cheetah by itself. I don't see the other one. I don't know if it's potentially sitting in the grass somewhere here, but at the moment it's just the one. There has been another male cheetah that's been hanging around. I've seen a few sightings of him in December, January, and he tends to be a little bit more skittish than the other two. But you can see there by VM's camera work that this guy's got an absolutely massive belly. So those vultures that we saw earlier, I'm sure are an indication that this cheetah has had a really good meal. Big full belly, and so he's found himself a nice little place to lie down and rest. I'm just scanning around as we're sitting here. I don't see any sign of the other one, so this could be a different cheetah. Maybe some of the viewers that have seen the others and have got some screenshots and markings can have a little look for us and make sure, and send it through and let me know if this is the same cheetah as those two brothers, or if we have a different one. And wouldn't it be great if we do have another male? That would be really, really good. But you can see breathing really heavily after a big meal like that. Be very, very warm, and that stomach is really swollen, so it's pushing up on the lungs and really battling to get a lot of air in, and that's why they end up panting like that. Now, Michael wants to know if I have any idea of how old the two cheetah brothers are. Well, Michael, when I first arrived in the Sabi Sands, in the northern Sabi Sands, which was in 2011, they were already being seen. At that stage, there was 4 of them. And they were adults already. They were roaming around on their own. They weren't with a female, and so in all likelihood I would imagine that they were probably already 4 or 5 years old. So those two must be now approaching 10, somewhere around there. That's what I would imagine would be the case. Obviously it's quite difficult to know exactly without having seen them as cubs, or without seeing the female with them or knowing where they've come from. It becomes quite difficult to age them, but I would say roughly around 10 years old, somewhere there. But typical cheetah fashion, it's now plonked itself down and is laying on its side with its head up. It's a very common way that cheetah lie down. They have this very flexible spine, and so for them, even though it looks really uncomfortable and it looks like it shouldn't kind of suit the way that they would want to sleep, actually works really well for them. You can see he's having a few problems with flies landing all over him. After eating a meal like he has, be little bits of meat and blood that will still be in the fur, which will be causing this cheetah to attract quite a few flies. They'll be landing on there due to the smell. Also, they'll try and sequester the moisture from his nose, and while he's panting, often they will produce quite a bit of saliva, and so you find the flies trying to get to the saliva itself. And the other reason why cheetah do tend to sit like that is because they typically are very, very vulnerable, particularly in areas like this, where we've got high densities of lion, hyena, and leopards. The cheetah is right on the bottom of that food chain, and so they can't really afford to be like the lions and pass out completely and spend, 20 hours a day fast asleep. They need to be a little bit more aware of what's going on, especially if they've killed something nearby. The sound could attract other predators, the smell could drift onto the wind, and that can attract other predators. So lying like that means that this cheetah has got a really nice view all over this open section, and is then able to see if anything does approach. But he seems fairly relaxed. Like I say, the other male cheetah that we were starting to see in December, up around in Koro and those areas, was not nearly as relaxed as this. So I don't know if maybe, like I say, the other brother is somewhere close by and is just resting, just like this male is, or could potentially be protecting the carcass. The vultures that we did see weren't down on the ground. They were all sitting in a tree. So it's potentially could mean that the other one is sitting with the food. But isn't that the most magnificent animal? Just that spotted coat, that streamlined head and long body with that long flattened tail. They are so, so beautiful. And they really are such a special thing for us to see here. In the Sabi Sands, their numbers are not great, and there really are not too many sightings of them. They are an animal that has struggled to create an environment for them to survive here, and so generally it's fleeting glimpses of them passing through. So to get one resting and relaxing is really very, very special. Now, while you see that tail flicking up and down, you can see he's just battling with those flies, and you can see actually how flattened that tail is. So we're going to spend some time with this cheetah and see what it gets up to, and see maybe potentially if we can find the other one, or if this is a different one indeed. And while we do that, we're going to go back to Jamie, who I believe is on the search for Karula. I'm not sure if she's had any luck yet, but I'm sure she'll fill us in. I have to agree, Brent. They are incredible slinky cats. They're absolutely beautiful. We just repositioned slightly and came around and just so we could get a better view of the face. And isn't that the face of absolute happiness and contentment? It's just kind of sitting there, very, 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 very content with life. And wouldn't you be if you had a belly like that? Absolutely full. It's not too hot today. There's a nice cloud cover. Absolutely perfect if you've had a good meal. Now, here Brent is already shouting about birds and that he can't let me have the lead. Well, Brent, unfortunately, we will go into the lead, because over on that tree there, as you can see, which VM is honed in on so quickly, is a beautiful European roller. So these guys are pretty much everywhere at the moment, but as the name suggests, they migrate to South Africa for the summer months to coincide with the amount of insects that are going to be hatching with the rains, and so they make their way here and arrive normally around November, December, and then they will start leaving probably in February. But they really like these open clearings as well, so anywhere where they can perch like that, and then from there they can hawk any insect or grasshopper that comes off the grass. So it's really a great place for them to be. So we do have another vehicle that's joining us, one of the commercial lodges, and like I say, they were the ones that gave us a hint that these guys were around this morning. So, you know, we do have to work quite closely with them, and they really do help us out quite a bit at times. So just let them know just now, and they've come in and joined us here. And I must admit, if you are on safari, it would be a great, great, great animal to see, especially here in the Sabi Sands. And just look at that beautiful face. And really the best thing about cheetah for me is their eyes. The color of their eyes is absolutely incredible. It's this deep amber color. Unfortunately, we don't have too much sunlight today, but when the sun is shining, it is absolutely beautiful. It just lights up those eyes, and they kind of really are rich and dark in coloration. Absolutely beautiful. Now you'll also notice from that face where there's a very, very clear black line that is coming past the nose there and down towards the mouth. It almost looks like it's cried a sort of a big thing of ink that's run down the face. So those little tear stripes are all there because this animal generally is more active during the day. So these guys, unlike the lions and leopards that are spending more time out at night and hunting in darker conditions, these guys tend to spend more time out during the day. And so those black lines there just help to really reduce the amount of glare that comes off the sun and off the grass and trees that are reflecting the sun's rays, and enable this cheetah to really be able to see very, very well and to be able to hunt a lot more effectively during the day. So Michael and James have just let us know that this is indeed one of the brothers. So thank you very much for that, Michael and James. Really appreciate you guys coming back and helping us out. It's sometimes a little bit difficult to recognize these guys without having a look at another photo and making sure. But they were pointing out that this male has a Y on his left side of his face, which you can see there now that VM's gone in, and so that's how we identify him. And the other one has got a cataract in his eye, which I do know about. And that's why I was a little bit confused with this guy, because I didn't see the cataract, so I wasn't 100% sure if it was him. But it makes me wonder then where the other one is. Maybe after a meal like they've had today, it could very well be somewhere on those open clearings under a shady tree, or it's made its way for water. There is 2 pans that are around here, and it is very possible that he's gone for a drink, and that's why he's not with his brother at this stage. But you can see that that tail is still working, still busy chasing flies away. And you can see, look how flat that end is. So that tail is really vitally important and is very, very different to what you would see on lions and leopards. They tend to have very rounded, sort of tube-like tails. And these guys, the reason why it's slightly more flattened is not for fly swatting, but it is all to do with balance. You can imagine when you are running at 100 to 120 kilometers an hour, you need to be able to turn on a dime to be chasing these antelope species. And so that long tail with that flattened end just helps to counterbalance whichever way the cheetah is running, and just keeps them really right on target all the time. So it's a nice, unique little feature that the cheetah has, very different to what, like I say, what lion and leopard have, and it enables them to really be quite agile when they're chasing. And being very cooperative in keeping it still for us as well. Sometimes they bounce the tail around all over, which makes the cameraman's life very difficult. Now, Oscar wants to know what the difference is between cheetah and leopard, or what the major difference is between cheetah and leopard. Well, VM is showing you very clearly there, the spots of this cheetah are solid, solid, solid. They have not broken apart in any way, whereas the leopard, like what you would have seen on Hosanna earlier, has got almost looks like those spots have broken apart and formed what we call rosettes. Also with the cheetah on the face, like VM is showing you there, he's got these little black lines that come down on the face, whereas a leopard will have white markings underneath the eyes. The head of a cheetah is very, very small and rounded, whereas a leopard has a very big, robust head with ears that sit a little bit further up on the head. And then this animal is a lot more slender with very, very long legs. And then you'll see there on the feet that the claws are sticking out and are almost blunted. So because these guys move at very, very high speeds, they can't afford for their claws to be out. To be in all the time like a leopard or a lion. They need those claws out to be almost like track spikes that give them traction when they're running. And cheetah's claw is always out, where a lion and leopard's always in. All right, and those are the kind of major differences between the two. With that, you shouldn't get confused too much between them. Now, I'm pretty sure that this male, as soon as we start to kind of get into late hours of the day, will get up and start looking for water. Generally, when they're very full-bellied like that, they do try and find water just to replace all the water that they've lost through panting. And if you actually look on his chin there, you can see there's no sign that he's actually drunk. Had he been drinking, you would have found the fur on that chin area would have been very matted, and it would appear a lot darker than what it does now. You can see it's all quite uniform. And so I would imagine that this guy will go for a little drink a little bit later, but he's just waiting for everything to cool down a little bit before he starts going right out into the open. Alright, so we're just going to stay with them for a little bit longer and see, and like I say, I'm going to try to see if I can find the other one. So far, no sign, but while we're looking around and seeing what we can find, we're going to go back to Jamie, who I believe is in some rather large company. I mean, we haven't had any luck in finding the other one. I have been scanning around with my binoculars, and so far no sign of the other one. I know that this morning both of them were seen together, so I'm pretty sure the other one is around here somewhere. Like I was saying earlier, with a full belly, it's possible the other one's maybe still lying somewhere wherever the carcass is. You know, we've had a bit of rain now, and the grass is starting to get quite long, so these cheetah can absolutely disappear. I mean, this one is luckily lying right out in the open, but when they're in the grassy areas and they just lie down flat, it can be really tough to see them, particularly if they have their back to you and the white of the tummy is not showing. So far, no sign. We will keep looking around. What we did spot was a couple buffalo off in the distance, so we're probably going to go and have a little look at those guys fairly shortly, because this cheetah is very, very, very stationary at this stage. Absolutely no movement from him. He did perk up a little bit earlier, kind of watching to the west, but nothing really appeared. I was hoping it would be the brother coming from the west, but nothing arrived. JC is asking if there are only male cheetahs in this area. Well, JC, there are female cheetahs. Just these two males that we tend to see regularly have set up a territory in this area, and just prior to them arriving, or when they did arrive for the first time, there was a female cheetah here with her female cub for a while. And they spent a lot of time in this area, and then unfortunately, I'm not sure what happened to them. The female distributed off, and then the last time I saw the actual female herself, she was being chased by two wild dogs across an open area, and she ended up disappearing after that. I'm actually not sure where she went. The wild dogs didn't catch her. She managed to get away, but she did get chased, and then after that, I think there was, with the Majingalans arriving at that time as well, there was these 4 big male lions, and so I think she pushed further into Kruger, and I haven't seen her since. There are a couple females around. I know in the central parts of the Sabi Sands, they see a female there, and there was a female that we saw about a year ago in this area as well. So they are around, but really not at all territorial in this area. So one of the other vehicles is just going to quickly just bypass. And see, he kind of woke up a little bit, and like I was saying, keeps looking to the west and keeps staring in that direction. Now, there could be a multitude of different things. There could be, some impalas that are making a noise there. There could, like I say, be his brother. So just see when this vehicle leaves. If he starts to fall asleep again after this vehicle, then we'll know it was just the vehicle that woke him up. But otherwise, we'll just sit a little bit longer and just see maybe the other male arrives. You can see having a nice little scan around, and look at those teeth, absolutely perfectly designed for shearing off bits of meat. You can actually see that triangular shape, the ones just past the canines. Oh, it's just moved a little bit, but you can see the canines there, which are utilized for basically grabbing hold of the throat of an animal and helping to suffocate. A little bit of rubbing. So when you've got an itch on your ear, sandy road is the perfect place. It's nice and coarse, and so it just helps really just to ease the itch. It's like someone getting a really nice bit of sandpaper and kind of gently massaging that area. So perfect for a cheetah to try and ease whatever was itching on that ear. Well, this is quite an interesting question. So Morgan wants to know, within the animal kingdom, is there a difference between the ratio of male and female offspring? Well, no, not really. So there is pretty much, it can be a 50-50 chance as to whether male and female will be born. But what does happen is that often with male offspring is that they tend to be killed when they are trying to find territories, particularly in the cats. So you find that a lot of the males will be depleted in that area, whereas females, they tend to survive a little bit easier in the predators. Once they've gotten to the age that they're able to breed, then you find that the males won't kill them. They won't see them as competition or to try and get the female back into heat, and so they'll leave that young female and know that she's then potential mating rights for later. But the males tend to be quite aggressive with one another, and so a lot of young males get killed. In terms of things like antelopes, what you'll find is that when antelopes are born, often the young ones are preyed on by predators, and so at that time it will be both male and female that will get equally preyed upon. It doesn't matter, the predator is not selective at that time. But once they start getting older and more mature, you'll find that the predators will target the males during the mating seasons. So when those antelopes are rutting and they're really not concentrating on what's going on, they're so preoccupied with fighting one another that they don't actually pay attention, then you'll find the predators will target males more than anything else. And so your males will then be capped slightly. And then as the year goes on and those females that have now been mated with start to become pregnant, they start to become big and slow. All right, and so the predators then start targeting the females. And so you end up with a situation where it's really kind of even numbers are being killed throughout. And so your balance of male and female amongst prey items is pretty equalized. It's not too different. So you typically shouldn't end up with a situation where you have too many males or too many females. It should balance itself out. And in big ecosystems like the Kruger National Park, it generally does. If you're in smaller game reserves where it's fenced off and the animals really can't move around too much, then you'll find a situation where you might have an imbalance due to an overpopulation of a certain species. But absolutely exhausted. It's hard work to digest. I'm sure most of you have had a meal at some point where you've overeaten completely, and it really is exactly like this cheetah. You feel like just flopping down with your belly exposed or your tummy exposed and just kind of taking it very, very easy and just hoping that that food goes down as quick as possible because it's an uncomfortable feeling. But like I say, I think we're going to carry on for a bit. We're going to go and see what these buffalo are up to. They just look like they're starting to stand up. So we'll try and kind of edge towards them for a bit. And we'll keep an eye on the cheetah while we're with the buffalo. It's really not too far away. And if they do start getting mobile, then we'll definitely return to this area and see what they're up to. But that is such a stroke of luck. Like I say, it's a very aptly named area, and in my time in this area I've been very fortunate in that most times I come to this open area I tend to find them, which is really quite cool because, like I say, they're really not an easy animal to find at all, and so finding them on this open area is always feels like a success. Like I say, not easy animals to find. No. I think we're going to miss this thing. So there we go. We have this male cheetah is up and mobile. He's going southwards. You can see he's just having a little look at the Egyptian geese that are making a racket here. As he's walked through, the Egyptian geese are not very impressed at all. So making quite a racket, and we flop back down again. So not too much movement, but a little bit of rolling around as well. So let's see how we go. I think he, like I say, is just waiting for it to get a little bit cooler before deciding to get up and go. Now, the pan that I was talking about is just on the southern side of this open area. It's right at the back end. If VM goes out there, you'll see just in the far left-hand corner is where that pan is. And so they like to spend a bit of time going that way to go and drink. Still no sign of the other one. This male keeps looking over its shoulder and looking around. Now, Rob would like to know, why are cheetahs not named, but lions and leopards are? Well, Rob, in all likelihood, it's because these cheetahs just really don't spend enough time here. All right, so they're seen so little, that's why that we are, we don't really see them enough to give them a sort of name. We just recognize some of them. And so that's why, the leopards and the lions are far more territorial and really localized into our area, that we see them really regularly. And so it just helps to be able to follow what goes on. Also, a lot of these cheetah are are born in areas that we don't know about, so we don't see them as little cubs, and so they don't get a name when they're little cubs, and they then come in from the Kruger areas, and so by the time they actually get here, you know, they're adults and they're kind of passing in and out, and so that's why they don't really have names. I suppose we could give them names, but they're seen so infrequently that we tend not to. But you can see this cheetah is wide awake. It's, even though it's laid down again, its head is very up, it's very alert, far more alert than when we saw it earlier. You can see the whole chest area is up, and it's really looking around everywhere. I wonder if maybe they didn't get separated somehow. Sometimes you'll find when you have situations when they're on a carcass that something like a hyena or a leopard can come in, and it can cause this animal to be able to, or get split apart, and then you find that they two run in different directions, and it takes a while for them to find each other. So could be why he's looking around. You can see he keeps looking back this side, and like I say, that's the direction that they came from. So I wonder if the other one isn't hopefully going to come from that direction too. Now this cheetah getting up and moving was a bit of a distraction, because I was actually looking in a dead tree, and I was trying to see, there was a falcon sitting on the tree, and I'm almost 80% sure that it was a peregrine falcon, because I know Brent actually saw a peregrine falcon down this area the other day, and so that would be a really, really, really good one to add to our bird list, and one I don't think that would be repeated very easily. So I was trying to see, but it was just a little bit too far off, and then when this cheetah got mobile, we decided just to come back and see what it would get up to. See, still lots of rolling around, and again it's the same reason. Rolling on that sand will just ease itches, as well as get rid of any ticks that might be on the ears. So Djuma would like to know if these cheetah are the only big cats that like to purr. Well, Djuma, yes, that is true. They are in a different class to lion and leopards, because the lion and the leopards roar. All right, they do not purr. So cheetahs are able to purr. So they are the only one of the really big guys that we see here. The only other big cats in the world would be jaguars and tigers, and they also, much like the lion and leopard, are able to roar. So the cheetah is the only one that purrs. But isn't that a spectacular view? And you can actually see how well camouflaged that cheetah is. As we pan backwards like this, you can see it is very, very, very difficult to see that cheetah in the grass. You know, you can imagine, as I was saying earlier, if they lie down absolutely flat, so they don't put their head up, you would be easily fooled in driving past and not actually seeing this cat. So they are perfectly suited to the environment, especially now when it does that. Very, very difficult. Luckily, we have incredible technology these days that we can go from wide and to right in tight like that with the cheetah, and really get an appreciation of the sense of space that we're in, one, and the beauty of the environment that we're in, as well as be able to actually see that cheetah in that really long grass. So quite a beautiful setting. Right, so while I try and see if I can get a better visual on that falcon, we're going to go back to Brent, who's got some big, large friends approaching him.